Daniel arrived at the small runway before sunrise carrying his old metal toolbox and a quiet hope he never spoke out loud. The cold air pressed against his skin as he walked past silent hangars and dim lights that flickered above cracked concrete. He had learned long ago to keep moving even when life stayed heavy on his shoulders. Money was always short and respect even shorter, but machines made sense to him in a way people never did. Every engine had a reason when it failed, and every problem had a path toward repair. Daniel believed that if he stayed honest with his work, the world might one day notice him. Until then he fixed what others ignored and accepted what the day handed him. This morning felt different, though, even before he saw the jet. The jet stood alone on the runway, bright white and powerful, like it did not belong in this quiet place. Workers gathered around it, speaking in low voices filled with worry and blame. Daniel listened from a distance while checking his tools and watching their body language. The problem sounded serious and time was running out fast. Some mechanics shook their heads and stepped back, not wanting responsibility. They said the system was too complex and the risk too high. Daniel felt the familiar pull to step forward, yet fear held him still. He had been blamed before, even when he fixed things right. A sleek black car arrived and stopped near the jet, drawing every eye on the runway. A woman stepped out, calm and sharp, dressed with purpose and control. Her name was Clara, and she owned the jet and the future it was meant to reach. She listened to every report without interrupting, her eyes scanning faces carefully. Each excuse tightened the air between her and the staff. Delays were costing her more than money, they were costing trust and time. When she noticed Daniel standing apart, her gaze paused. There was curiosity there, not judgment, and it caught him off guard. Clara walked toward Daniel with steady steps and asked him what he thought. Her voice carried authority yet left space for honesty. Daniel felt his chest tighten, but he spoke truthfully, saying he had not seen the engine yet. She nodded and told him time mattered more than titles. Those words landed deep inside him and pushed him forward. Daniel opened the engine panel and began to study every sound and signal. His hands moved with memory built from years of struggle and learning. The world around him faded as focus took over. He noticed a pattern: others missed something small causing something big. A loose connection hidden behind layers of parts and pride. Daniel adjusted his position and worked patiently, checking everything twice. Sweat mixed with grease as minutes stretched thin. People whispered behind him, some doubtful, some surprised. Clara watched silently, seeing confidence grow with every movement. Daniel trusted his instincts and finished the final adjustment. When the engine responded smoothly, the runway seemed to breathe again. The jet came alive with power and calm, replacing panic in the air. Staff stared in disbelief as systems cleared one by one. Daniel stepped back, tired but steady, unsure what came next. Clara walked toward him slowly, her expression changed by what she had seen. She did not see a struggling mechanic anymore, she saw someone rare. Someone who solved problems when others walked away. Daniel wiped his hands and met her eyes, waiting. Neither of them knew this moment was only the beginning. The runway slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but something had already changed in the air. Daniel felt it as he closed the engine panel and lifted his toolbox again. People who once ignored him now watched him with quiet respect. He kept his eyes low, unsure how to carry this sudden attention. Clara did not speak right away, and that silence felt heavier than noise. She studied Daniel, as if trying to understand years of effort in one moment. For Daniel, this was just another job done honestly, even if his hands were shaking inside. Clara finally asked Daniel how long he had worked there, and he answered simply. He spoke of long nights, broken machines, and learning through failure. There was no anger in his voice, only acceptance and pride in his skill. Clara listened closely because she valued truth over polished words. She saw someone shaped by struggle, not bitterness. The jet crew waited nearby, ready for departure, yet Clara did not rush. Time felt different now, as if it had paused for a reason. Daniel did not realize how deeply his words were landing. Clara invited Daniel to walk with her toward the jet. He hesitated, unsure if he belonged in that space. She noticed his pause and told him skill mattered more than position. Those words settled his nerves and he followed. Inside the jet the space felt unreal, clean, quiet, and powerful. Daniel had never stepped into anything like it before. Clara asked him questions about engine systems and problem-solving. He answered honestly, growing more confident with each reply. As they talked, Clara shared how pressure followed her everywhere. Success had given her reach, but also loneliness. People around her often spoke what they thought she wanted to hear. Daniel was different because he spoke only what was real. That honesty drew her closer without her realizing it. She saw in him a calm strength shaped by patience. Daniel listened without judgment, something Clara rarely experienced. The jet crew waited again, but Clara waved them back. Clara offered Daniel a seat and asked about his life beyond work. He spoke of small rooms, long walks, and dreams kept quiet. He did not ask for sympathy, and that made his story stronger. Clara felt something shift as she listened. She had built companies and changed industries, yet this moment felt personal. Daniel spoke of wanting stability and respect, nothing more. There was no envy in his words, only quiet hope. Clara admired that simplicity deeply. When Clara finally ordered the jet to prepare for departure, Daniel stood to leave. He believed his role was finished and did not expect more. Clara stopped him and asked him to stay in touch. She offered him her contact without ceremony or pride. Daniel accepted, unsure what it meant, but grateful. The jet engines warmed again, ready to lift into the sky. As Daniel stepped back onto the runway, he felt taller somehow. He watched the jet rise, carrying more than just Clara with it. That night Daniel returned home exhausted but restless. His small room felt different, as if walls had shifted slightly. He replayed the day again and again, unsure what would follow. Clara sat high above the clouds, also unable to rest. She kept thinking about the mechanic who fixed more than her jet. Both felt a quiet pull toward a future neither had planned. The runway encounter had planted something new and alive. Days passed after the runway moment, yet Daniel felt as if time had slowed inside him. Each morning he returned to work with the same tools and same routine. Still, everything felt sharper, like the world had gained color. People greeted him differently and asked his opinion more often. Daniel stayed humble because pride had never helped him survive. He focused on engines and sounds and steady hands. But every quiet moment carried the memory of Clara and her calm voice. Clara kept her promise and reached out, not with commands but with curiosity. She asked questions about his work and his ideas about machines. Daniel replied carefully, choosing honesty over impressive words. Their messages grew longer and warmer without effort. Clara found comfort in his grounded view of life. Daniel found confidence growing in ways he did not expect. Distance did not weaken the connection, it strengthened it. Both felt something real forming between their ordinary days. One afternoon Clara visited the runway again without warning. She arrived quietly without an audience or urgency. Daniel saw her walking toward the hangar and froze for a moment. He wondered if he should step forward or stay focused on work. Clara smiled and greeted him like an equal. She asked him to show her how he diagnosed problems. Daniel explained each step slowly, enjoying her interest. The hangar filled with easy conversation and shared focus. As hours passed, Clara watched Daniel work with patience and care. She noticed how he respected every tool and every process. There was no rush, only precision and responsibility. Daniel noticed how Clara listened without interrupting. She valued learning as much as leading. Together they solved small issues and shared quiet laughs. The world outside the hangar seemed far away. Trust grew naturally between them without promises. Clara invited Daniel for a simple meal nearby, not a grand place. He hesitated but agreed, wanting honesty over fear. They talked about childhood struggles and lessons learned. Daniel spoke of watching others succeed while he stayed unnoticed. Clara spoke of success that felt heavy and isolating. They found balance in shared understanding. No one tried to impress the other. They simply shared space and truth. After that day their bond deepened through time and effort. Clara offered Daniel opportunities to grow without pressure. She connected him with training and better tools. Daniel accepted, carefully wanting to earn every step. He worked harder than ever, staying true to himself. People noticed his growth and respected his discipline. Clara admired how he stayed grounded. Her feelings grew stronger with each honest moment. One evening Clara stood on the same runway watching the sky change colors. Daniel joined her, wiping his hands after work. They stood quietly, feeling the weight of the journey so far. Clara realized she trusted Daniel beyond business or success. Daniel realized he felt seen and valued for the first time. Neither spoke of the future, yet both felt it clearly. Something rare had formed through patience and respect. And the next step would change everything. The next morning the runway felt calmer than usual, as if it was waiting for something to happen. Daniel arrived early and found the hangar lights already on, which surprised him. He heard soft footsteps and turned to see Clara standing near his tool cart. She was dressed simply, with no big guards and no loud display. Her face looked steady, but her eyes carried nervous energy. Daniel asked if everything was fine, and she nodded slowly. She said she wanted to speak before the day pulled them apart again. Daniel felt his heart beat faster because her tone sounded serious. Clara walked with Daniel toward the edge of the runway where the air was open and quiet. She looked at the jet in the distance and then looked back at him. She told him that success had given her many things but not peace. She admitted that she had been surrounded by people yet still felt alone. Then she said Daniel had changed that without even trying. Daniel stayed silent because he did not want to ruin the moment with the wrong words. He listened carefully as she spoke about trust and respect and real connection. The wind moved around them, as if the runway itself was holding its breath. Daniel tried to answer, but his voice felt small in his throat. He said he was only doing his job and that he did not expect anything from her. Clara shook her head and told him it was more than a job. She said she had watched many people chase money and praise. But Daniel chased truth and skill and responsibility. That was why she kept thinking about him even when she was far away. Daniel looked down at his hands, still marked by work and years of struggle. He asked why she was telling him all this now. Clara said because life was too short to hide what mattered. Clara reached into her pocket and held a small, simple ring in her palm. It was not flashy and it did not try to show power. It looked like something chosen with meaning, not for attention. Daniel stared at it, shocked and confused at the same time. Clara took a slow breath and said she did not want to lose him to fear or distance. She said she did not want him to feel small beside her world. She wanted to build a life where both of them stood equal. Then she asked him to marry her right there on the runway. Daniel felt his mind race like an engine with too many signals at once. He thought about his small room, his unpaid bills, and the years he had been ignored. He thought about how people might judge them and how hard it would be. He also thought about the way Clara listened to him and valued his truth. No one had ever chosen him like this before, without conditions. Daniel asked her if she was sure because this choice could change everything. Clara said she was more sure than she had been about any deal in her life. She said she did not need a perfect story, she needed a real one with him. Daniel looked at the runway stretching out ahead like a long, uncertain path. He realized he was not afraid of Clara or her success. He was afraid of losing himself inside a world that moved too fast. Clara seemed to sense that fear and promised she would not erase him. She promised she wanted Daniel for who he was, not for what he could become. Daniel finally spoke clearly and said he wanted a life built on respect and honesty. He said if she truly wanted that too, then he would not run from it. Clara smiled, and her eyes filled with emotion she did not try to hide. Daniel nodded slowly and said yes. Clara placed the ring in his hand first, as if asking him to accept his own worth. Daniel held it carefully, feeling its small weight like a new beginning. Then he placed it on her finger with hands that still trembled. They stood there for a moment, letting the truth settle in the air. The runway workers watched from a distance, unsure what they were seeing. No loud music played and no cameras flashed. It was quiet, real, and powerful in its simplicity. Daniel felt something inside him finally relax, as if a long fight had ended. Clara reached for his hand and held it as if it belonged there. Later that day, Clara met the airport manager and spoke firmly and kindly. She praised Daniel for his skill and his character in front of everyone. She offered support for the workshop so the team could grow and learn. But she made it clear Daniel was not being rescued. He was being respected and recognized for what he already was. Daniel continued working with the same focus even as the world around him shifted. He did not change his values, and that earned him even more respect. Clara watched him from the hangar door, proud of his steady nature. People started to see Daniel not as a background worker, but as a leader. In the weeks that followed, Daniel and Clara faced many conversations and many opinions. Some people doubted them and others tried to use the story for gossip. Daniel stayed calm and refused to feed noise with anger. Clara protected their peace by keeping their life simple and private. They built routines that felt normal, like shared meals and quiet evenings. Daniel kept learning and improving his skills with new training. Clara kept leading her company but made room for real life. They supported each other through pressure without losing respect. Their relationship grew stronger because it was built on truth, not show. One evening they returned to the runway where it all began. The sky was clear and the air was gentle like a blessing. Daniel stood beside Clara, looking at the jet resting quietly in the distance. He thought about how one repair had opened a door he never imagined. Clara thought about how one honest mechanic had given her something money could not buy. They did not talk about luck because they both knew it was more than luck. It was courage meeting timing and respect meeting truth. They walked back toward the hangar hand in hand. And the runway that once felt cold now felt like home.